Hello, and welcome to Rob's British Baking Show. On today's episode, we're going to be making what I'll call chocolate chip cookie cupcakes. They have chocolate cake stuffed with chocolate chip cookie dough, a chocolate Swiss meringue buttercream, and then a little chocolate chip cookie on top. This was inspired by a recipe I saw on a show called Mary Makes It Easy on the Food Network. I don't really watch the show that much, but I happened to catch this episode where she made some cupcakes with the chocolate chip cookie dough inside. And I thought, well, that looks really cool. I looked online, saw some other people made it too, and I thought, okay, I'll just take different recipes that I've used before and combine them together into this new dessert. So that's what we're going to do. The recipes that we're using today are not from any British places at all. We've got a recipe from America's Test Kitchen. We've got a website called Ghirardelli.com. I'll talk more about that later. And then Trisha Yearwood, country singer, definitely not British. So I figured, well, this is Rob's British Baking Show. Look, I'm even wearing a shirt that says America right on it. I've got to figure out a way to at least make something European in here. So today, whenever I talk about numbers, they're going to be in metric units. I know how much Americans love the metric system. Also, for the butter we're going to be using today, we're going to be using European style butter. There you go. I thought that would be better than me using a British accent, and yeah, that wouldn't be fun for any of us. So the first component we're going to make is the chocolate chip cookie dough. I'm going to be using a recipe by Trisha Yearwood that is actually designed to be eaten as raw cookie dough. I have not made these cupcakes before with the cookie dough inside of them, and none of the sources that I've seen explain like what the texture of the chocolate chip cookie part is going to be like when you're all done. These are going to be frozen and put inside the batter, and so I don't really know how much is going to get cooked through in the oven. Like the cupcake part will get baked. How far cooked will the cookie dough go? I don't know. And because I am not one of those people that will lick a bowl or lick the blade of the stand mixer when I'm making cake or cookies or anything like that, I don't want to put raw egg in my mouth, and I really don't want to end up feeding people egg that isn't completely cooked. And so I wanted to go with a recipe that does not use egg in it for the cookie dough part. And so I went with Trisha Yearwood's recipe. They're designed to be eaten raw. She uses applesauce in place of the eggs. I actually made these a couple of days ago. They're in the freezer now. This is what I did. We combined together the wet ingredients first. We've got the butter. We've got the granulated sugar, the brown sugar, and the applesauce and vanilla. You mix those together in the stand mixer. When I did these the other day, I just kind of started it on low speed, and I just left it on low speed while I was doing other stuff. I didn't even look at it. Didn't even realize there were chunks of butter that were just kind of sticking around in there. Eventually, I raised the speed on the stand mixer, and that's what you can do too. If you just put it on a high speed, eventually stuff will get incorporated. What you're looking for in general when you mix sugar with butter is to get it a lighter color. Whatever color it started off being initially, kind of towards the beginning of the mixing, make sure it gets a lighter color. A common mistake people make is to not mix the sugar and the butter together enough. Let it go longer than you think it should so that it's getting nice and smooth and everything's getting incorporated. The dry ingredients, flour, baking soda, salt, that's it. The recipe says to sift these. I ended up using a sieve to do that. You could use one of those cranker things that sift stuff together. You could just take a whisk and just whisk it in the bowl and be done with it. Add that into the wet ingredients, little by little, get it incorporated in. I then took the bowl off, mixed in the mini chocolate chips is what I used for this. Mix those in by hand. You could do it in the stand mixer. Either way, not a problem. From there, you take the dough and you scoop it out and roll it into little balls and you put it on a cookie sheet. That's what the cookie dough ball recipe is. What I had used in this recipe is European style butter. That's the butter that I keep in the house. European style butter is a slightly higher fat content than American butter. And at some point I discovered that I really like the European style butter in the buttercreams that I make. And so that's what I use. The European style butter, because of the higher fat content, can melt a little quicker, and it made the chocolate chip cookie dough a little sticky, a little moist, didn't really roll well at all. And so I just put the whole bowl in the refrigerator. I took it back out, was able to scoop it more easily. It was still too sticky to shape into balls, not a big deal, just scooped it right onto the cookie sheet, put the whole sheet in the refrigerator, and then rolled them out once the dough had firmed up. So now we're going to work on the cake batter. So the cake recipe I'm using is from a website called Ghirardelli.com. It's sugar-ology with a G-I-E at the end instead of a G-Y. The woman who does this website, she has this thing called a Cakeculator. It has 3 different inputs where you choose the cake flavor, the cake format, like a layer cake, a sheet cake, cupcakes, how many, whatever, and then a buttercream flavor. And so with the cake flavors, she's got 2 different chocolate ones. One is a just chocolate, and the other one is chocolate indulgence. That's what she calls it. I've tried both of them. I personally like the regular chocolate one better, so that's the one that I'm going to be making today. So her recipe starts with chocolate and cocoa powder, and we mix in some boiling water. I'm going to go ahead and pour that over. You can find the recipe on her website, and so I'm not going to go through a lot of details here. Get that whisked together. You want to get it all incorporated. It's going to sit. Make sure that all that chocolate gets melted completely. This needs to sit for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we mix in the other ingredients. So I'll be back. Okay, so the next step is to give it like one last whisk. Make sure everything's all melted and incorporated. That looks good. And then we start adding in the other wet ingredients. So we've got some brown sugar and some salt. I guess the salt isn't technically a wet ingredient, but it's going in now. We'll whisk that in. And then the sour cream, and whisk that in. And the oil, giving that a good whisk to get it incorporated. This is the part where you really want to be whisking. All right, that's looking pretty good. And then we're adding in a teaspoon of vanilla. Give that a whisk. The thing about batters is until you add the flour, you can pretty much whisk them, stir them, mix them as much as you want. Once you add the flour in, you don't want to be mixing it too hard afterwards, otherwise it kind of activates the gluten in it. I don't know, some scientific thing like that. Next is the eggs. It's 2 whole eggs and then 1 egg yolk. I'm gonna try to add it in a little bit at a time. You shouldn't worry at this step about over mixing. That is good. All right, so then last step is the flour and baking powder, which are mixed together in this cup. We're gonna sift those in. And then we're just gonna whisk this in gently. Again, the main goal is to get it incorporated, but then not over mix it after that. Not too hard. You wanna make sure and scrape the side of the bowl. Get the bottom of the bowl too. And that is looking good. Next, we've got the cookie dough balls. These came out of the freezer. Normally you would fill the cupcake liners 2/3 of the way full, roughly. I'm gonna go a little bit less than that, at least for the first one. These things will take up a certain amount of space. Get out the cupcake pan with the liners in it. I have a large scoop here. And this is about 3 tablespoons. I'm gonna scoop that in. Putting in the first one, you can see it's still showing. The liner looks like it's about 2/3 of the way full, probably a little bit more actually. It's very possible that as it bakes, the cupcake batter will just kind of grow up over that. So how about I do some of them that look like this, and some of them I'll scoop some extra batter. I'm thinking that instead of calling this Rob's British Baking Show, I should be calling it Rob's Experimental Baking Show. This is going to go in the oven, preheated to 180 degrees Celsius. Yeah, okay. Here we go. All right. So there are the cupcakes out of the oven. It's hard to do the toothpick test to make sure the cake is done because you've got that cookie dough in the middle. But you can do the touch test where you press down on the surface of the cake. It should be a little firm and bounce back, and that'll tell you that they're done. You can see visually, you can't tell the difference between what were the ones that I added more batter on top and the ones that I didn't. So, didn't matter, I guess. Now that the cupcakes are out of the oven, we'll bake these. These are some of the cookie dough that I'd made the other day. We're gonna bake these. These are gonna be the little cookies that are gonna go on top of the cupcakes. You can see I have extras of these, yay. And then we're gonna work on making the buttercream. The buttercream's gonna be interesting, so make sure to come back for that. Actually, I'm gonna come back for that. For you, it's probably only gonna be a couple of seconds. Bye. Okay, so here's where we're at. The cookies came out looking good. That's really good. So the next part, the last component we have to make is the buttercream. The buttercream is a chocolate Swiss meringue buttercream. What I'm doing for my buttercream, this is a recipe I've done before, where I've combined together two different recipes. One is from the Ghirardelli website, Adriana's chocolate Swiss meringue buttercream. And the other is from America's Test Kitchen book, The Perfect Cake. They also have a chocolate buttercream. It is a Swiss meringue buttercream, they just label it chocolate buttercream. I'm mainly using theirs. I combined together a couple of suggestions from Adriana, and I've rearranged the kind of the order of the steps a little bit, not a lot. Major components, so it's a half a cup of sugar, 3 egg whites, a little bit of salt, like 1/8 of a teaspoon, nothing more than that. And then what Adriana does is she uses cream of tartar, which America's Test Kitchen doesn't include. The cream of tartar helps stabilize the buttercream when you're done. So we have those things in the mixing bowl. I've got a pot of boiling water over there. It's not quite boiling yet. It's about 1 inch of water. We're making a double boiler. We're gonna put this stand mixer bowl on the pot of water, and we're gonna be stirring this stuff. And the idea is we're gonna get this up to a temperature of 165 degrees. That is Fahrenheit. I didn't bother converting it to the Celsius. I got tired of that too, I have to admit. That's gonna make sure our eggs are cooked. And then we'll come back to the stand mixer and combine in the other ingredients. Make sure the water doesn't touch the bottom of the bowl, and then just kind of mix things together until it gets to the right temperature. 165 degrees, that's what we're shooting for. I'm taking the egg white mixture off of the double boiler. You can see that it looks very foamy. It has reached the 165 degrees. We're gonna whip it up with the whisk attachment. All right, let's start this thing up. You wanna whisk it on high. This is gonna be mixing for about 10 minutes, and then it has to cool down. All right, it mixed for 10 minutes. We've got a nice sticky meringue now. Now we're just gonna let it cool down another 10 minutes or so. Our goal is to have the temperature of the meringue and the temperature of the butter kind of close together, both of them around room temperature. All right, so here's the status. The meringue is at about 75 degrees, not bad. The butter is about 70 degrees. That's pretty close together, I'm happy with it. So what we're gonna do is start the stand mixer with the meringue in there. We're gonna add butter piece at a time. As you're adding it in, you wanna wait for things to get incorporated. So we're gonna just turn it on and add in the butter. Just drop it right in. because we focused on making sure that the temperatures are pretty well aligned, everything should get well incorporated. You're not going to get soup. You're not going to get the kind of clumpy, lumpy look. That is all the better. I am going to turn it off for a minute and give it a good stir. Trying to get everything off of the side of the bowl and the bottom as well. Give it a whisk for, I don't know, another minute or so. That is looking pretty good. All right, so turn it off. We're gonna at this point stop using the whisk. Now we add in the chocolate. Chocolate gets added in all at once. Now get the paddle attachment out, and we're going to get that in there. Get that in. All right, I'm just mixing it up a little bit and I'm gonna add in the vanilla. We've got a little more than a tablespoon, so I'm just gonna let it splash. There you go. With the vanilla, you just kind of don't worry about measuring it that much. All right. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to wipe down the sides of the bowl. Not really stirring it at this point. I'm just scraping the side of the bowl. I want to kind of get it mixed together so it's uniform. That's looking pretty good. Let's taste it. That's really good. All right, we're almost there. So, piping bag. I've already taken one of the bags, cut off the tip. I like to use a coupler. This is a piece of plastic that you put inside of the bag, and so it gets down to the bottom. You're gonna cut off the tip so that this part just kind of fits right through, like that. And then put on whatever piping tip you want to use, and then the other part of the coupler screws on there so it holds the piping tip in place. So I picked a tip that I thought I would like. If I decide I don't like it, I just screw this part off, put a different tip on, and you're good to go. And put it in. Twist it at the top. Not gonna do anything fancy. I'm just gonna kind of circle it around the perimeter, and then around in the middle, and then just give it a little pull on top. And that's it. Cupcake. Done. They look pretty darn good to me. What's missing? Chocolate chip cookies. Here we go. Cookie going in. It is kind of messing up the piping a little bit, but I don't care. They look nice, huh? Here's our test case. This is exciting. I think if you were gonna eat this, you'd probably take the cookie. Take a bite of it. That's good. Set that on the plate. You'd probably just at this point pick up the cupcake and just bite it, but I'm gonna cut it so we can see what it looks like on the inside. Oh, it cuts really smoothly. So it's soft on the inside. That's the inside of it. All right, here we go. I'm gonna have to make my mouth really big here. Oh, that's good. The chocolate cake is perfect. The frosting is very, very good. I'm not sure I taste the chocolate chip cookie dough, but it doesn't have a cookie texture. It has a very soft texture to it. That is really good. Oh, I didn't finish my cookie. Sorry if I'm making you jealous at this point, but I've given you the information so you can go make this yourself. Absolutely delicious. Mama's gonna like this one. Okay, so to review, the chocolate chip cookie dough is from Trisha Yearwood. It's on the Food Network website. You can get that recipe and make it. The chocolate cake itself from Ghirardelli. I'll add links for this. The buttercream recipe is mainly America's Test Kitchen. I modified it a little bit. I'll try to type it out and put it below. We'll see what happens. I need a nap now. Hope you enjoyed today's episode of Rob's British Baking Show. I know hardly anything British at all, really nothing. But I will wish you a jolly good day and see you next time.